Today, I want to give you a warm hug. And I mean that. Not as a figure of speech, not as a podcast platitude. I genuinely mean it. Because I know that some of you are listening to this on a day when things feel hard, when the progress isn't coming as fast as you'd like, when you're tired of trying, when you've been at this for what feels like a very long time, and the version of yourself you're working towards still feels further away than you'd like. And some of you are listening to this on a perfectly fine day, maybe even a good day, and that is wonderful. But I want you to save this episode, bookmark it, keep it somewhere where you can find it easily, because there will be a hard day. That is life. And when it comes, I want you to know that this episode is here. This is the Lean On Me episode. And if you know that song, the Bill Withers classic, you know the refrain. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. Now, I want to start today by telling you something slightly embarrassing. When I was in high school in Minnesota, in music's class, we occasionally had choir practice. And I was not, and I want to be clear about this, front and center in choir practice. I was not the girl with the solo. I was firmly in the back row, blending in, contributing just enough to be part of the sound without anyone being able to identify me specifically as the problem. And the thing is, we sang Lean On Me, that specific song, a lot. And I know it might sound a bit cheesy, but I loved it even then, because even as a teenager who wasn't thinking much about health transformation or midlife or any of the things we talk about on this show, I understood what that song was offering. Someone saying, I've got you. You don't have to do this alone today. So that is what today is. I've got you. And today we're going to talk about all the effort that you've been making that you haven't been giving yourself credit for. We're going to talk today about what it actually feels like when you're not having just a hard day, but living through genuinely a hard season. We're going to talk about the inner critic, the voice on the hard days that tells you you are not enough. And then stay with me until the end, because this is the part that I'm most excited to share. We're going to talk about some of the science that I genuinely believe is going to change how you think about your own effort, not just on this health journey, in your life. It's not toxic positivity. It's not fake motivation. It's a warm hug from me and some real science and some honest conversation. And it's just for you. Let's go. Now, before we get into it, I want to personally welcome you to my podcast. I'm Vera Brown, weight loss, health, and fitness coach for women 40 and above who want to lose weight and transform their health naturally and sustainably. After struggling with my weight and health for decades in the corporate world and as an entrepreneur, I lost more than 100 pounds in my mid-40s and have kept it off. No pills, no injections, no procedures, no extremes, no tracking. In my podcast, I share what worked for me, including actionable strategies. I discuss fitness, nutrition, sleep, stress, and mindset to help you achieve your weight loss and health transformation goals. Join me. Now, let's get into it. Today's episode is a little different from our usual format. There's no big single concept to explain, no myth to bust, no framework to present. Today is simpler than that. Today's just for you, wherever you are on this journey. At the beginning, deep in the messy middle, at a plateau, maybe after a setback, on a day when you're genuinely struggling to see the point. This episode is for all of it and all of you. So let's get into it. And I want to start with something that I need you to really hear. And I want to say it clearly without softening or hedging it because I mean it completely. You are doing more than you think. Not as a platitude, as a fact. And I know this about you, even though I've never met most of you. I know that you are like me, women who are actively seeking information, women who are listening to a podcast about health transformation on your commute or while you're doing a walk or in the car between meetings or while you're doing the dishes. You are like me, women who are still trying, still learning, still here wanting to make progress on your health journey. And I want to talk about what that effort that you make every single day, every single week actually looks like. Because I think most of us have been conditioned by diet culture, by the before and after thinking, by every program that promised results by a certain date. We've been conditioned to measure our effort by our results and only by our results. If the scale moved, the effort that we made counted. If it didn't, the effort didn't count either. And I think that is one of the most damaging ideas in the entire world of health and weight loss because effort is real, regardless of whether the results are visible yet. And effort deserves to be counted and celebrated. And today, we are absolutely going to count it and celebrate it the way it should be. So, let me show you what I mean with my own life early in my more than 100-pound weight loss journey. And the thing is, none of what I'm about to tell you would have shown up on a scale that week, but all of it counted. It was the week that I started making a point of drinking more water every single day, not just throughout the day, but starting each morning with a full glass of water before anything else. It was a stretch when I made an effort to stop eating after 8 p.m. in the evening. Most nights, not every single night, I want to be honest about that, but most. And it was something that might surprise you. It was the evening that I spent listening to other health podcasts, reading articles from health journals, trying to actually understand the science of what I was actually doing rather than just following instructions. And the thing is, all that effort, none of that specifically magically moved a number on a scale, but it all counted. And I want you to think about your past week, just the past 7 days. And I want to ask you something, not about your results, but about your choices, about your actions, about the moments where you did something, even something small, and you did something that was in the direction of your health. Was there a moment this week where you chose water when you really wanted something else? That counts. Was there a moment when you turned down something that you decided wasn't serving you? Even quietly, without making a thing out of it, without anyone noticing or congratulating you, that counts. Did you read a food label on something you'd been eating for years without checking? That counts. Did you go for a 10-minute walk when you had zero motivation for a full session, but you just did it anyway? That counts. Did you cook something from scratch when there was a ready meal in the freezer? That counts. Did you take the stairs? Did you order something different at a restaurant? Just by quietly making a different choice. And nobody knew and nobody said, well done, but you did it anyway. That counts. All of it. Did you notice a craving and not act on it? That counts. Did you listen to a podcast about health and nutrition on a day when you were exhausted and didn't feel like it? That counts. And by the way, you're doing that right now. Right now, in this moment, you are investing in your health, and that counts. Now, I want you to think back further a month, 6 months, maybe a year. Think about the times you got back on track after a difficult day, after a difficult stretch, not waiting for the magic Monday, not starting over next month, but just quietly starting again the next morning. Think about the meals that you cooked, the nights you went to bed earlier than you wanted to, the times you said no to something when everybody else was saying yes. None of that was for nothing. All of that was effort. All of that was something, and it all counts. Now, I want to tell you about a woman I worked with. She came to me at a point that she described as her lowest point. And I think some of us really will relate to her story. She'd been trying to lose weight for years, and she felt like she had nothing to show for it. And when I asked her to walk me through the past month in detail, not the results on the scale or anything like that, but the choices that she had made, something happened in her tone of voice. She started listing things that she'd done the past month. First, a bit sort of casually and almost annoyed. Small things, the lunch that she had swapped for something healthier, the evening walk that she started taking, not as regularly as she would want to, but still a few times a week, the moment that she'd chosen fruit over the biscuit 3 days in a row, the night she said no to the late night snack that previously had always been automatic before. And as she listed all these things, as we were talking, her voice and her tone began to change because she'd been so focused on what she hadn't achieved that she genuinely hadn't seen what she'd done. And when somebody, me, reflected it back to her and helped her really focus on the effort, when she heard her own effort listed out loud, she got quiet for a moment and she said, I didn't really realize that I'd done any of that. But she had. She'd done all of it. But the thing is, she hadn't been counting any of it as real. Now, I want you to take a moment and think about how you treat people you love when they're making an effort in any area of their life. Think about a child who's working hard at something difficult, a colleague who's learning something new, a friend who's trying to change something in their life. Do you look at them and say, oh, but where are the results? Do you dismiss everything they've done because the outcomes aren't visible yet? Of course you don't. You say, well done. You see the effort. You acknowledge the effort as real. And today, I want you to do that for yourself, not as a consolation prize, not instead of pursuing the results, alongside it. Because recognizing your own effort isn't self indulgence, it's accurate, and it's the foundation to keep going. And once you start noticing that that effort is real, maybe invisible, but is absolutely real, that effort, the walk, the water, the conversation you had with yourself in front of the fridge, there's a second category of effort that I think gets dismissed even more often than that. And that's the truly tiny stuff. Things so small we don't even think to count them at all. So I want to take a moment and talk about them today. I want to say something about these small, tiny things because I think this might be where most of us lose the most ground. Not in the big dramatic failures, but in the dismissal of small wins. Because I think we've been trained to think that health transformation happens in the big visible moments, in the workouts and the meal plans and the programs and the before and afters, and anything that doesn't fit neatly into one of those categories somehow doesn't quite register as real progress. It doesn't count as real effort and it's not something worth counting or celebrating. So, I want to offer you today a completely different lens. Any work that you do on your mindset and how you think about food, movement, about your body, about yourself, that is real work, critical work. It isn't the soft option. It isn't the thing you do instead of the real stuff that counts. It is the real stuff that counts. Because every study on long term sustainable behavioral change consistently shows that the mindset shift comes before the lasting physical change, not after, not as a reward for it, before it. So if you've listened to this podcast and something has shifted in how you think about sugar or calorie counting or motivation or permission to focus on yourself, that is progress. Measurable, real, meaningful progress, even if nothing on the outside has changed yet. And if you've had a conversation with yourself about why you want this, not what you're going to eat, but why it matters, that counts. If you started noticing things that used to happen on autopilot, reaching for the biscuits or the cookies, skipping past the stairs, and just noticed, even without changing anything yet, just noticed that is the first step towards change. And that counts. And yes, of course, hitting play on an episode like this, that counts. Finding this podcast, coming back to it, being someone who actively seeks out understanding rather than just hoping something eventually will stick, that counts. That is who you are. And who you are is someone who's going to get there. I promise. And let me give you a tiny example from my own life, because I think it shows you exactly how small this can be and still genuinely count. There was a day early on in my weight loss journey when I really didn't have it in me to do anything that felt like effort. And, the one thing I did that day, literally the only thing, was to not put sugar in my coffee that morning. That's it. That was the whole win. And at the time, I remember that it felt like nothing, genuinely, completely like nothing. But it was a choice that I had made. That was the healthier choice. It was something. And on a day when I couldn't manage anything else, that one small thing was the entire difference between a day where I did nothing in the direction of my health and a day when I did one thing. Here's a practical thing I want you to do right now, not later, now. I want you to name just 3 things, just 3, that you've done this past week that moved you in the direction of your health. They can be tiny, they can be really small, they can be big, they can be things that you'd never tell anyone about. Name them right now in your head, say them clearly, and then, and this is the important part, actually acknowledge them. Acknowledge them as effort, as you trying. Not brush past them to get to the list of things you should have done. Actually say, I did that. That was me. That counts. Okay, 3 things. Got them? Good. Because here's what I know about those 3 things. Each time you made one of those choices, your brain produced a small, clean hit of dopamine. the chemical that makes effort feel worth it. Each small completed action starts to rebuild the connection between trying and reward, which means that those tiny wins that you've been dismissing, they've actually been doing real neurological work, whether you counted them or not. So count them, please. Now, everything I've just described, the three things, the tiny coffee win, the small noticing, that's for the ordinary hard days, the days when things are simply difficult on your health journey. But I want to take a moment and talk about something else now, because I think for some of you listening, this isn't just a hard day. It might be a hard season. And I don't want to skip past that. Because for so many of us, life can feel stressful and overwhelming in a way that goes beyond just a single hard day. You can feel like you're in survival mode, just putting one foot in front of the other. And if that's where you are right now, I want you to actually sit with what I'm about to say. Don't just let it pass by in the background. Actually, let it land. There are days, weeks, months, maybe even years, when all of your effort is taken up simply surviving. And the idea of moving beyond that, of having anything left over for a health transformation, for new habits, for any of the things we usually talk about on this show, that can feel impossible. If you are there right now in that season, I want you to know you are not alone. And I want to tell you about a season like that in my own life. There was a point a few years ago when I'd left a career I'd had for nearly 20 years. 2 decades of knowing what was what, knowing the people, the systems, the unwritten rules, exactly where I stood, and exactly what was expected of me. And I walked away from all of that into something new. New industry, new people, new everything. And overnight, I went from being someone with real hard won expertise to being a genuine beginner again. In my 40s, surrounded by people who knew the ropes I didn't, learning things I should apparently already know, feeling behind before I'd even properly started. And I want to be honest with you, during that season, my health was not the priority. It couldn't be. Every bit of my energy was going into simply getting through each day, learning enough to not feel like a complete fraud, holding myself together through a transition that was frankly exhausting in ways I hadn't fully prepared for. So, if you're in a season like that right now, whatever your version of it is, a career change, a move, a relationship ending, maybe simply a period where life has thrown more at you than usual. I am not going to stand here and tell you that you should be working on all these new habits and meal plans now. No, that's not what this moment needs from you. But what I will tell you is this: getting through the day in a season like that counts too. It might not look anything like a wellness habit. It might just be that you got up, that you showed up, that you kept going when everything in you wanted to stop. That is not nothing. That is, in its own way, exactly the same thing as what we've been talking about today. That is effort that deserves to be counted, even when it doesn't look like anything you'd put in a health podcast. And when that season eases, and it will ease, even if you can't feel that right now, your health will still be there, waiting for you exactly where you left it. You haven't lost anything by surviving first. Surviving first was the right call. Now, whether you're having one hard day or living through a harder season, there's a voice. that tends to show up for so many of us in both. And I want to talk about that voice directly because I think it's doing more damage than most of us realize. So I want to talk about that voice. You know the one. I know it too. On the hard days, when the effort doesn't seem to be translating into results, when you're exhausted from trying, when someone else seems to be doing this so much more easily, for many of us, there's an internal voice. And it says things like, it's not enough. You're not doing enough. Look at how long you've been trying and where you are. Other people manage this. Why can't you? You're probably going to stop again. You always stop. What's the point? And I want you to know if you hear any version of that voice, I hear it too. I've heard it for decades. I know that voice intimately, and I want to tell you about one specific moment with it because I think the specific moments are where this actually lives more than the general feeling. I was getting ready for work a few years ago, and I was putting on a blazer, one of those sort of corporate type blazers. And I want to be honest about my thinking behind it because I think you might recognize it. I'd chosen that blazer specifically because I thought it would, hide things. It was a bit big on purpose. The idea being that even if I didn't button it, it would still look put together, professional, fine. That was the plan. But the thing is, that morning, I just couldn't get my arms fully into the blazer. Not button it. I'd already given up on the idea of buttoning it, but just getting my arms in that blazer. And I stood there getting ready for a workday, completely emotionally undone by a blazer that was supposed to be the forgiving option. The one that was meant to hide things and instead was just one more thing I couldn't fit into. And the shame of that moment was disproportionate to what was actually happening because at the end of the day, it was just a blazer. But the voice in my head was not talking about a blazer. It was talking about me. And I want to say two things about that voice. The first is this. That voice is lying to you, not exaggerating, not being a bit harsh, lying. Because it's taking the evidence of how hard this is, which is real, and using it to reach a conclusion that is completely unsupported by the facts. The fact that change is slow does not mean that you're failing. The fact that someone else seems to find it easier doesn't mean that you lack what it takes. The fact that you've had setbacks doesn't mean that you're not going to have more setbacks and more progress. The voice presents those things as logical conclusions. They are not. They are fear wearing the costume of logic. And the second thing I want to say about that voice, and this is where the science I mentioned comes in, so stay with me, is that listening to that voice isn't just painful. It's actually physiologically costly. Because the inner critic on the hard days isn't just making you feel bad. It's actually making things harder in a way that's measurable and real. And I want to explain exactly why. But first, let me tell you about another woman I worked with. She'd been on her health journey for about 8 months. And the first 6, she had really good progress. She had progress, momentum, real change that was visible and measurable in the traditional sense. And then something happened in her life. It was a difficult period work, and she had some family stress, and then things just slipped. Not dramatically, but enough. And when she came to me, she wasn't upset necessarily about that slip, but she was devastated about what she'd been saying to herself about it. That voice, that voice had been brutal, relentless. And she said, I don't understand why I can't just be kinder to myself, why it's automatic to be this harsh. And I offered her this because I know this personally and intimately. I offered her that maybe it's because you've been practicing that voice for years, maybe decades. Because for so many of us, that inner critic is a habit. It feels like truth because it's familiar, but familiarity is not accuracy. And the thing is, she was not a failure, not even close. She was just someone who was going through a hard time, doing her best, but beating herself up for not doing more. And here's what I told her next. I told her that the harshness isn't helping. It genuinely, measurably, scientifically isn't helping. And the kindness that you're withholding from yourself, that's not softness, that is strategy. And let me tell you why I can say that so confidently, because there's genuine science behind it. Two pieces from completely different directions that together make the case better than I ever could on my own. So let's get into a little science here because I find it genuinely fascinating. And I want you to stay with me here because I promise you, this might be something that you haven't heard before. I'm going to tell you about two sides of the same scientific phenomenon. And by the end of this section, you're going to have a completely different relationship with what you believe about your own effort. Let's start with something called the nocebo effect. And I want to be clear, nocebo is not a mispronunciation of placebo. It's a completely separate, well documented scientific concept. The word nocebo comes from the Latin meaning I shall harm. And it describes this that negative beliefs and expectations can produce real, measurable, negative physical outcomes. Now, most of us know about the placebo effect, the positive version of this. You've probably seen it online. Give someone a sugar pill that contains no real drugs or medicine, tell them it's a painkiller, and actually a significant proportion of people will experience real pain relief. That belief that the treatment will work will produce a genuine physiological change. That is what many of us know as the placebo effect. Now, the nocebo effect is the dark mirror of that. Tell someone that a treatment will cause side effects, and actually they can experience those side effects, even when the treatment itself was just a sugar pill. Give someone information that makes them expect to feel worse, and sometimes they actually feel worse. And research here has shown the nocebo effect can influence everything from pain perception to immune function to physical performance. And why does this matter for you on a hard day, on this health journey? It's because the inner critic, the voice that says your effort isn't enough, that you're probably going to stop again, that other people find this easier, that you're not making progress. That voice is running a nocebo effect on your own health transformation. The negative belief is producing real negative outcomes, not just emotionally, physiologically. The chronic experience of believing that your effort doesn't matter, doesn't count, isn't enough, that belief system is actively working against you in ways that go beyond mood. It affects your stress hormones, your motivation circuitry, your body's ability to respond to the work you're putting in. Shame and self doubt are not just painful emotions, they are costly. They are literally making it harder. And I want you to hear that not as another reason to criticize yourself. No. But is the most practical, science-backed argument I can give you for being kinder to yourself on the hard days. Not because kindness is soft, but because the alternative is physiologically damaging. Now, the other side of the coin, the extra science that I want to bring in here too. And this is the part that genuinely changed something for me when I first came across it. I want to tell you about a specific Harvard study, which I find mind blowing. In 2007, two researchers at Harvard published a study showing the experiment that they'd been working on. They had been working with women who were working to clean rooms in a hotel, as they called them hotel maids, women who spent their entire working day doing physically demanding work, pushing heavy carts, lifting, bending, moving constantly. By any objective measure, those women were getting significant amounts of daily exercise, far exceeding the recommended guidelines. But here's what was extraordinary about the study and why I'm telling you about it. When the researchers surveyed the women, 67% of them reported that they didn't exercise. More than a third said they got no exercise at all. And that's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Despite all that physical activity that those women did as a normal part of their daily job, their bodies didn't actually show the health benefits you'd expect. Their blood pressure, weight, and body composition didn't reflect the amount of movement they were actually doing. The women who were doing the work weren't getting the physical benefits. Why? Because they didn't believe they were doing exercise. And the experiment that the researchers ran is this. They told half the hotel maids that their daily work, the cleaning, the lifting, the moving, that all qualified as good, proper exercise that met the Surgeon General's recommendation for an active lifestyle. And they explained specifically how each working task counted as specific exercise. And the other half of the women in this study were told nothing special. 4 weeks later, with no change in actual behavior, the group of women who'd been told that their work counted towards exercise showed measurable decreases in weight, blood pressure, body fat, waist to hip ratio, and body mass index. And the group who hadn't been told anything specific showed none of those changes. So, same work on a daily basis, same effort, same job description, same activity, same everything. The only difference between the two groups of women was the belief that the effort was real and worthwhile and counted, and that belief had genuine changes to their bodies. Isn't that incredible? The belief that your effort counts actually seems to make it count more physically, measurably. That is not just motivation speak, that is a peer reviewed study from Harvard published in a top academic journal. And here's what I want you to take from those two pieces of science together. The nocebo tells us that believing your effort doesn't matter makes it less effective. The hotel maid study from Harvard tells us that believing your effort is real and worthwhile makes it more effective. Those are two sides of the exact same coin, which means, and I want to say this as directly as I possibly can, that what you believe about your own effort today is not just a feeling, it's having a physiological effect on your body's response to that effort right now on this journey in this season. And that means that the kindness isn't soft. It's the most scientifically supported strategy available to you. And I want to do something with that right now, not just to tell you about it, actually do it together before we move into the practical strategies. If you're somewhere where you can, driving is fine. Just keep your eyes open if you're driving. I want you to put a hand over your heart if it's safe to do so. If you're somewhere safe and still, you can even close your eyes for this. Not if you're driving, please. And if you're not, that's completely fine too. Just stay with me. And if you're somewhere where you can say this out loud, really say it. Not just think about it, because I want you to actually hear your own voice say this and let it register. Say it out loud. And if you can't say it right now, say it as clearly as you can in your head, like you mean it. And I want you to say this: my effort is real and it counts today and every single day. And I want you to say it again. If you want to, I'll wait. My effort is real and it counts today and every single day. Because that is not just toxic positivity. That is not a comforting lie. You just heard the science. That sentence is true. Hold on to it. Now, I want to give you something practical because believing your effort counts is the foundation, no question. But I want you to actually have the tools for the days when believing it honestly feels hard too. So, what do you actually do on the hard days? Not just the science. What are the practical things that help? I want to give you 5, not all at once. Pick the one that feels most alive and most doable today. The first is the 3 things practice. We did a version of this earlier in the episode, naming 3 things you've done in the direction of your health this week. On the hard days, I want you to try doing this every morning. Just 3 things. Written down if you want, say it out loud if you're somewhere you can, because the hard days are the days when your brain is most efficiently filtering out evidence of your own effort. The 3 things practice is a deliberate override of that filter. You are literally telling your brain, look here, this is what I did. These are 3 things, and this counts. The second suggestion I have for you is connecting with someone, calling them, texting them, messaging them, not to report your progress or lack of it, not to be advised, just connecting with someone, a friend, a loved one, someone who makes you feel less alone. Because the research on social connection and stress is unambiguous. Human connection reduces cortisol, that stress hormone, and it genuinely physiologically changes the internal environment you're trying to do this work in. A 10-minute phone call on a hard day, a few messages with a loved one, it isn't a distraction from your health journey. It is part of it. My third suggestion is a tiny win. Not a big gesture, the smallest possible action you can take today in the direction of your health. Remember my version of that tiny win? Literally just a coffee with no sugar on it on a day when I couldn't manage anything else. That is the size of a tiny win that we're talking about. Maybe a glass of water, maybe a 5-minute walk. One good choice at your next meal, not to make up for anything, not to prove something, just to give your brain the experience of completing something you said you'd do, making effort on your health. Because that tiny completion, however small, produces the dopamine signal that effort is connected to reward. And on a hard day, that signal is more important than any grand gesture. The fourth is this episode or any episode of the show or a book reminding you why your health journey matters. Because staying connected to your why, the real deep emotional reason this journey is worth doing, is what separates the women who keep going from the women who stop. Not willpower, not discipline, connection to meaning. On the hard days, reconnect why this health journey matters. Not what you want to look like, although that, of course, is important, but what you want to be able to do, how you want to feel, who you want to be present for, and what kind of energy you want to bring to that presence. And the fifth, and this is the one I've already argued for with science, is speaking to yourself kindly, not falsely, not pretending the hard day isn't hard, but kindly. The way you speak to your closest friend if she called you on a hard day, you wouldn't tell her that she wasn't doing enough. You wouldn't remind her of every time she'd struggled before. You'd say, "You're doing something genuinely difficult. You're still here. You're still trying. That matters. And I'm proud of you." So say that to yourself today and know, really know from the science that this isn't just comforting, it's effective. And I want to leave you with one more thing for the future, not just for today. I want to come back to that song. Me in that back row in high school, choir practice, not the one with the solo. There was something about singing that song, even slightly off key, even blending in rather than standing out, that felt important because the message of it doesn't require you to be the best voice in the room. It doesn't require you to have it figured out. It just requires you to show up and to know that you're not alone because you're not alone in this. The hard days are real. The hard seasons are real, but slow progress is real. The frustration of trying and not seeing results as fast as you'd like, all of that is real. And none of it means you're failing. None of it means you should stop. None of it is evidence against you. Because what is also real is all the effort you've been making that you maybe haven't been counting. The small choices that have been doing the quiet, consistent work, whether you notice them or not. The fact that you're still here, still trying, still listening. And what is also real, and this is the science part, the part that I hope you'll carry with you, is that what you believe about your own effort changes what your effort can do. Believe it counts because it does. And believing that it does makes it count even more. And I want to give you one more thing to take with you, specifically for the next hard day. Not today's hard day, if today is one, the next one, whenever it comes. I want you to remember this episode, and I want you to remember the hand over your heart. And I want you to say it again. My effort is real, and it counts today and every single day. That sentence is yours now. Use it. Just like that song. Lean on me on the days when you're not strong. Because that's what this show is here for. That's what today was for. A warm hug from me to you. because I want you to know you are doing more than you think. You have come further than you're giving yourself credit for, and you are going to keep going. I know this about you because you're still here. And I'll see you in the very next episode. Take care of yourself, all of yourself, including on the hard days. You deserve that. And it turns out the science agrees. Now, I want to mention one thing before you go. If cravings are part of what make the hard days harder on your health journey, if there's a pull towards certain foods in the moments when you're tired or stressed, I've recently launched something specifically for those moments. She's called Fury, and I have a whole episode dedicated to her. What she is, why I built her, and how she works, if you want the full story. Fury is an app that works on any smartphone or laptop right there in your browser, no download needed. Right now, she's in private beta for you to test and try, completely free, full access, in exchange for nothing more than your honest feedback. If you'd like to try Fury today, just email me directly at vera@fabfit40plus.com and I'll personally get you set up. No pressure, no obligation, just an option to try a brand new app that I think could really help. And if today's episode made you want more personalized support, if you'd love someone to look at your specific health journey with fresh eyes, help you see your blind spots, and help you build an approach that genuinely works for your specific life and body, my one-to-one VIP coaching is exactly that. A real personal conversation that produces a real personalized roadmap. Not a generic plan, your roadmap. The details are in the show notes. Check it out. And please share this episode. If there's one woman in your life who's having a hard day, or frankly, who's been having lots of hard days, tell her she's not alone. Give her a warm hug in the form of this episode. Send it to her. It might be exactly what she needs today. And one last thing. A review on Apple Podcasts takes under 2 minutes and helps more women find the show when they need it most. On a hard day, finding the right episode can change something. Your review helps make that happen. Thank you. And thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you want more real, honest guidance on losing weight and transforming your health sustainably and naturally in midlife, you're in the right place. Subscribe here to get my strategies, mindset shifts, and the tools that actually work for women 40 and above. No BS, no quick fixes, just real transformation. Don't forget, you deserve to feel good in your body and life. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on every single step of the way. For the obligatory legal disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, nutritionist, therapist, medical professional, or similar. All information shared on this podcast is purely for informational purposes and does not constitute medical advice. It is entirely your personal choice and responsibility as to what information you use. Please consult your own medical professional for any medical advice.